Major changes are coming to multiple formats because we have some results from this most recent week of skirmishes and also some classic constructed results to talk about. So take a look here. These are the Blitz wins for week 2 of skirmish season. Now Blaze Firemind, of course, because she is awesome, sits at the top of the heap this week at 20 wins. We're going to talk about where that places her in a little bit, with KO not too terribly far behind her at 14. Victor Goldmane crosses the finish line with 13 wins as the third place winner, and Data Doll only with 10, which is kind of a big deal, but she's still pretty insane in the format. Zen with 8, Aurora with 7, Levia with only 4, even though she's one of the better heroes probably in the format. Dorinthia, Quicksilver Prodigy, sitting there with 4 as well. And then you have a smattering of 3s and 2s with Verdance, Prism, Other Prism, Vincent, and Arachne, all with 3. Acilio, Enigma, Bolton, Bravo, Florian, and Terra with 2 apiece. Do keep in mind, some of those are just like Fatigue Guardian shells with different names. And then everyone at the bottom got 1 win. So Dorinthia, Original Dorinthia, got 1 win. Riptide, Dromai, which is pretty cool. Lexi, KO, Berserker Runt, that is the one that was very splashy from last week, that throws 10 foot tall and bulletproof. Dash Database, which isn't seeing very much movement at all, even though she is pretty solid. I'll say she's pretty solid. She could definitely make some moves going forward. Enigma New Moon with a win. New and Yoji as well. So what does this mean for the point totals? First of all, it means that Victor Goldmane has crossed the precipice and reached the Blitz Living Legend status. He is no longer legal for official Blitz tournament play as of this Friday. So if you have a skirmish coming up, or even just want to play at an armory, Victor Goldmane, starting on Friday, will be disallowed from official Blitz tournament play. If you and your friends want to get together and just play, the non-available heroes, I think that's totally fine, right? You could probably even argue it at the armory level that you might be able to get away with it, depending on how casual your scene is. But nevertheless, you're just going to pivot to, well, technically Shiana. Shiana is like literally Victor right now. If you haven't seen in Blitz, Shiana basically does what Victor does, except she runs more pummels. So if you would like to run pummels, Shiana is where you need to be. Plus, you get to play a bunch of other cool cards that you don't normally get to see otherwise. Nevertheless, you could also just pivot pretty easily into like Terra, for example, which is coincidentally placed right here. You could definitely pivot to Terra. Terra does some pretty aggressive things as well if you want to play him that way, or you could play the Fatigue Guardian package. But if you are sad to see Victor Goldmane go, leave a comment down below. Tell me what hero and what Guardian you would recommend picking up in his stead. But what else does that do to the Living Legend leaderboard? Well, let's take a look. Dorinthia now sits atop the Living Legend leaderboard, gaining 15 more points with 859 total points. Remember, they changed the point totals. Now you have to reach 1,000 points to actually Living Legend out. And of course, we did see, these are all the heroes that have reached it. There's Victor Goldmane with 1,005 points, which is a thing. That's definitely a thing that he reached. Anyway, Dorinthia is inching along ever so slightly. Bravo, which, is also inching along ever so slightly, is sitting second. Who's in third place? Blaze Firemind, and yes, I feel feelings towards that. I continue to play Blaze like almost daily, and it is just so much fun. At this point, I went back a little bit to try like Living Legend Kano, and I'm just like, I don't have the same feelings about this deck that I did before I logged all of these games of Blaze. I feel like I've completely changed my mindset on how I want a wizard to function. And I'm a little confused, but I will say when she rotates, which I don't think will be in one more week, because there's 4 weeks, or I guess there'll be 2 weeks, right? There's 4 weeks of the skirmish season with Blitz events and all that sort of thing. I don't think if she keeps at this track, 165 points total, I don't think she's getting double that in 2 weeks, you know what I mean, to hit the Living Legend status. So I think she will be available. But when she goes, there is a hero down here that I think is definitely worthy of your consideration, and that is Verdance. Of course, you could play Acilio as well, but to me, you can play an arcane version of Verdance that feels incredibly similar to what Blaze does, except that you have a definite combo, and you're basically trading out the I'm playing on your turn type of feeling with a more controlling type of feeling. So if you're looking for something that feels almost a little bit like Iyslander in the control side of things, Verdance in this format does the trick. She's very good. I have really enjoyed playing her because I've done my 400 games with Blaze, and I'm like, I think it's probably a good idea for me to try some other things too. Nevertheless, sitting at third place, look at where Zen is. Zen has gained 90 points since he returned to the format. His rumors of his demise were greatly exaggerated, and here he has 90 points already in the first 2 weeks of the season. He is quite good. If we go back to the overall pie chart, he was like the 5th most winning hero, which is not bad, which is really in general not bad. Looking at how Zen pairs into the rest of this field, Zen, I would say, is a little bit of an underdog towards Blaze, but against other heroes has a pretty heads-up 50-50 matchup. Maybe an edge into some of these matchups. Into games where they're looking to play a more back-and-forth mid-range style, I think Zen can capitalize, because the more he sees his deck, the more he can get around the negative variance of not drawing cheat cards or possibly drawing too many, because those are the times where I've seen him really sort of fall off. But all that to say, he's only got 90 points on this season, but he's already starting to do some pretty good stuff. And of course, because of the way that they brought him back, sitting at 595 points means he's towards the top of the leaderboard. Prism, super underrated, can be played as a complete aura building deck and doing pretty well, all the way down here only with 3 wins right next to the other Prism. Both of those aren't seeing a ton of play, as you can see, only 25 points, but right below KO with 120 points. Other heroes that I would have my eye on are like Aurora, who's just come on very strong and shown to be a very good aggressive deck. And funnily enough, Data Doll, who's going to be around for a long time still. 85 points on the board, and just very strong. That's the interesting thing about Data Doll. She's an incredibly strong hero. There she is, just staring at you with those cold, dead eyes. She's an incredibly strong hero in the format. She can go incredibly fast, and she almost requires decks to have some type of answer, either via like a fatigue game plan or just being able to present disruptive on hits. Things like Pummel that rip apart her already small hands. So she's going to be around for a while, particularly if some of these heroes, like for example, if Terra comes up and rises in prominence, like the Victors of the world that could play aggressively and play pummels and play on hits, those are what Data Doll struggles into. So she's going to be around for a long time, and whether or not she rises to the top of the meta is sort of dependent upon what other heroes are doing at the time. But if there's a bunch of heroes that are just like, I throw vanilla 0 for 4s and just don't really interact with you much, she can win that race by just spewing out items from the old top of the deck off of those banishes. So this is a pretty interesting update, pretty interesting change. I will say I was expecting more points from Levia. Perhaps it's just one of those scenarios where people aren't bringing the deck because they don't know it. I guess it could be that. I mean, KO is an aggressive brute that does some very powerful things, that doesn't lose to Blood Debt. I think that's perhaps the only reason why I think people aren't necessarily jumping on the Levia bandwagon. Outside of that, I'm really not sure why she isn't that spiky, I guess, because there's so much going for her. And I feel like she has some great tools to try and combat the Blaze Firemind just overall push. But that's not the only thing that we saw this week, because if we also go up to the Classic Constructed Living Legend leaderboard, we have some things to talk about. Zen, Tamer of Purpose, has earned 250 points. And in fact, this week he won like a Battle Hardened and a ProQuest Plus and like the Calling. Like he swept, basically. So he got 250 points here and is sitting at 845 points, which means this format is very likely to change in the very near future, because the Pro Tour, as it's officially World Tour, Pro Tour, I don't know, whatever they're calling it now. The World Tour, we're going to call it that. I think it's a World Tour, right? Anyway, it is not stopping. It is just ramping up yet again. Now that World is over, they've dropped down and started up the spiral yet again. And Zen Tamer of Purpose is saying, I'm ready to cross the finish line myself. Hello, dog. My dog says hello to everyone. Hi. I see you. Yes, that's great. Zen Tamer of Purpose is going to LL, I would say, very soon. Look how crazy this is. Viserai, which we can also see if we, well, unfortunately, if we look at the Living Legend, or sorry, the other Skirmish point post that they made, it's Living Legend form. So we can't really see the overall wins that Viserai had this past week, but 275 points, putting him at 810. You remember when he was stuck at like in the 500s? Yeah, he's climbing rather quickly this season because of the power that came out of Rosetta. And then this is the craziest thing. In the Rosetta season, Enigma Ledger of Ancestry has 600 points. Now, keep in mind that winning a world championship gives 100 points. Okay, so keep that in mind. What? 600 points. New at 205 points just this season. Now, if we're talking big point getters, of course, Aurora is the other one that sticks out with 345 points because she became that sort of premier aggro deck of the format that everyone's sort of pick up because Rosetta made her incredibly approachable to jump in on. So that is pretty cool as well. But I think this format is really going to turn a lot when Zen goes, and if Enigma can keep doing her thing like this, she's gone in like, I don't know, less than 6 months, probably. Like the middle of next year, ProQuest season. Like, I mean, she could go fast. So that would be at least 2 Mistveil heroes that could exit the format within, I mean, Zen could exit the format in like 2 months, depending on how the everything breaks down. That's kind of crazy. So these formats are about to change very, very quickly. Now, here's the thing. Zen is in perhaps the best place he's ever been, not from a power level standpoint, but from a playability standpoint. I think he's good, not too good, but good enough. And he has a lot of answers, which is great for the format. So I actually like his position right now. It's unfortunate that he gained so many points off of the back of being absolutely broken originally. Nevertheless, I think he's actually fantastic in the format, but I think he's starting to rise to the forefront yet again and be sort of that S tier deck. So maybe it's a good thing for him to sort of exit the format on a high note, I guess is the best way to say it. But these other heroes, maybe Viserai goes. I don't know. He could go. And specifically Enigma. When Enigma goes, everything changes again because I would say she is sort of the scourge of the format. Everybody knows that she exists, the fact that she can block for auras and the fact that she can just throw big stompy attacks, which is sort of where the deck has become. It's sort of this big kind of aggressive, I don't even want to know if aggressive is the right word, but she throws big old stompy attacks, which are uncomfortable to block with, and then builds a board and can just continue to snowball that board and those big old stompy attacks. And so it's just become this like really aggressive deck that players just don't have a lot of play into in some respects because they can just snowball. And so it'll be interesting when she goes, because what does it open the door for a lot of the heroes perhaps down here that can't necessarily go toe-to-toe with her. And then, of course, the newcomer, Jarl and Ira. When do they get on the board and how much of an impact will they make is the question that we're going to ask each other. But it's crazy to see everything coming to a head here at the end of 2024 because it begs the question, what's going to happen in 2025 and how is this all going to play out? What kinds of things are you going to expect to watch this weekend with some of these heroes making their way into the Living Legend format? Because we have a Living Legend format put on by none other than MinMax Games. So check that out as well because there's going to be a stream for it. The Living Legend Calling, the very first one, is going to be on stream on the, I think, official Fab TCG page. So lots of changes are coming to both of these big formats. Living Legend is on the horizon for heroes like maybe Dorinthia, maybe Bravo, maybe Zen and Blitz, and already for Victor. And then, of course, maybe Zen here in Classic Constructed as well. Some crazy stuff. Hey, if you enjoyed this video and you want to make the number go slightly higher and celebrate the holiday season in style with me by being a subscriber, press the button. Hit the subscribe button. As always, everybody, thanks for watching.